Hello, everyone. My name is Julie Gatt. I'll be the moderator for today's webinar, Getting Started with Instabug, Going Beyond Bug Reporting. Today, we have Ali, one of Instabug's sales engineers, and Rami, our customer happiness manager, here to show you how to optimize performance and reliability for your mobile app with Instabug. Just a quick review of our agenda. So we'll begin with a brief overview of Instabug and our capabilities. We'll discuss some of our customer successes and how they're using Instabug. We'll touch on available integrations, and then we're going to go into a live demo where we'll highlight how to utilize integrations and the best practices of Instabug. And so with that, I'll kick it over to Ali to begin.
Perfect. Well, welcome everyone again. My name is Ali, and I'll be walking you through a brief presentation before we kick off the demo. So Julie, if you can, let's move to the next slide. Okay, so I want to tell you first what Instabug is. So Instabug really empowers mobile teams to release with confidence, and this is done through our different products. So through our different products, we provide our customers with the ability to report bugs, easily be able to reproduce them, and ultimately solve them. We allow them to communicate with their customers and get feedback from them. We also allow them to receive crash reports and basically see the steps leading to that crash, along with seeing the root cause of that crash, like the stack trace, and ultimately be able to reproduce it and solve the problem right there. And we also offer them real-time insights, user feedback, and insight as an automatic insights from our application performance monitoring tool, so they can get an overall idea about how well the application is performing. So next slide, please. Okay, so the demo we're going to do today is going to cover three main products. First, bug reporting. And bug reporting is a product that can be used both on beta for beta testing and to make sure you're shipping quality applications, and on live production to collect feedback from users as well. It reduces the time and cost and resources to debug and fix the issues, as you get to see the step-by-step the user's journey up until the moment they encountered a bug, and then you'll be able to basically recreate it and solve it. Next is crash reporting. This helps the customers monitor and improve the app stability by providing some root cause analysis of the cause of the crash, like the stack trace, as well as step-by-step what the user's journey was up until the moment they had the application crashed, which ultimately helps developers recreate the crash and solve the problem there. And lastly, our APM tool. APM stands for Application Performance Monitoring. We automatically capture some data and insights about your application performance with different metrics, so that allows our customers to see how well their application is performing for different devices, different operating systems, and so on. With that being said, we can move to the next slide. So a lot of top mobile applications rely on Instabug for app performance and stability. Just to name a few of them: PayPal, Lyft, EA Sports, SoundCloud, which just shows you how our product really adds values to these teams. Next slide, please. With that being said, Instabug is currently deployed on more than 2 billion devices, with more than 25,000 apps using Instabug, and more than 400 million issues reported through Instabug. Next slide. So some of the feedback that customers say about our product, and I'll share with you some of the feedback that I've personally heard as you're reading through this slide and seeing what our customers say typically about us, is that we empower them and help them communicate with their end users and get feedback from them and aggregate that feedback, so they'll be able to see root cause of the problems that they've been receiving, and ultimately be able to recreate them, as not a lot of tools allow you the ability to recreate the problem, to kind of understand better why this problem has occurred and be able to solve it. We also provide you with a lot of metrics and a lot of performance and stability metrics to help you make sure that your application is performing up to the standards that you set. Next slide, please. So we'll be walking you through how it works. So if you go to the next slide, please, Julie. Instabug supports many platforms. So iOS, Android, React Native, Flutter, Cordova, and others as well. It's really easy to integrate Instabug. If you show the next slide, please, Julie. Yep, this one. To integrate Instabug is just a simple line of code. Just to include that this line of code in your application, and Instabug is ready to go. So we can move to the next slide. Instabug has so many integrations. Just to name a few of them, we have integrations with Slack, Jira, and this really helps our customers seamlessly include Instabug in their day-to-day activities. So for example, this helps our customers report or manually or automatically report the issues that they receive through Instabug to the tools that they use daily, like Slack. So for example, if there are any issues that happened on, for example, a checkout screen, and you have a support team that is there to fully support that checkout page, you can forward these issues through a Slack channel that this team communicates on automatically to Instabug. Or for example, if you are using Jira for support tickets and so on, you can forward these reports to your Jira, and it's a two-way integration. So whatever you do on the dashboard or on Jira will be reflected and on the other side. So for example, if I close the Jira ticket as the issue has been resolved, it's going to close the bug report or crash report on the Instabug dashboard, and the same thing the other way around. If I close the bug report on the dashboard, it will close the Jira ticket as well. So really many ways to seamlessly include Instabug in your daily workflow to basically cut down the time it takes to assign the right member of the team to take care of this issue. Next slide, please. We pride ourselves by how secure your data is with Instabug. So as you're reading through these slides, these are just a few methods that we follow to make sure your data is completely safe and secured. So for example, single sign-ons, data encryption in transit and at rest, employee access management. These are all methods that we follow to make sure that your data is completely secure. It's also worth mentioning that we're GDPR compliant and SOC 2 compliant as well. Next slide, please. So with all that being said, it's also worth mentioning that even that Instabug is running on billions of devices every day while maintaining 99.99% uptime, which just shows you how reliable and stable Instabug is. Next slide, please. And with that being said, I'm going to move the mic over to Rami, who's going to walk you through a demo. And you can go ahead and introduce yourself, Rami. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ali, and thank you all for being here today. I am Rami, Customer Happiness Manager at Instabug, and today I'll be showing you how to integrate our SDK on your application, and then I'll be walking you through on both our bug and crash product team, on the bug and crash products engine. So let's start by showing you our Xcode here and show you how the SDK is integrated. So on Xcode, let me just share my screen first. Apologies for that. Yes. All right. Let's move to Xcode. And it's very simple steps. You can add Instabug's SDK on your application. So all you need to do is just visit your project and then to the package dependencies here, and then add Instabug to your application. You just put the Instabug URL in here and download the SDK. Once the SDK is fully downloaded on your application, you will be able to see it here on the left side. Now, you will need to add the initialization code for your application in order to link your application with the dashboard. So here's the single line of code that Ali was just explaining. It has your app token. This token will help you link your application with your dashboard. Now, when you launch your application, it should look something like this. Now, let's say that you are an end user and you are using your application, for example, like this, and you found a bug in here, for example, in one of the filters. Let's say that this filter isn't working properly. So all you need to do is just to shake your device like this, and a prompt options list will be shown to you. It has three options: the bug reporting, suggest improvement, and ask a question. So in this case here, we found a bug. So we need to report it to the developers of this application in order to work on a fix for it. So let's report a bug. As you can see here, there's the email address in order for the developer of the application to be able to reach out to you. And here's a description where you can type in a few words that would help this developer understand what the problem is. So for example, let's say hi, I'm a premium user, and I cannot choose a filter. For example, check the attachments below. With that, this end user here can add as many attachments as he needs. Like, for example, he can add an extra screenshot. So not all the list of the attachments is showing, or sorry, for the filters is showing. So he can take a screenshot of this and even annotate it by going, for example, like this. You can even add a screen recording for this. You can add a photo from your gallery and so on. Aside from these attachments, Instabug's SDK, it automatically collects screenshots of the steps the user go through during the process of reporting the bug. So this user can delete some of these screenshots in case he found like some private data or some sensitive data that he wants to remove. So he can just remove this screenshot, for example, if it contains credit card number or like any sensitive data. Now, let's submit this bug and see how it looks like on the dashboard. Now that the bug is sent to the dashboard, let's go to the dashboard and see how it looks like. All you need to do here is just go to dashboard.instabug.com, log in to your account, and then navigate to the application you have integrated. Now let's open this application and check the bug we sent. As you can see here, here's a list of all the bugs you have on your dashboard. Of course, you can filter out some bugs in case you're working now on the new bugs, in case you're working on a certain type of bugs, like a bug, an improvement, maybe a question. You can filter out by the assignee and many others. For now, here's the bug that we were just sent to the dashboard. And from the very top, you can see the email address we entered. You can see the description we've entered as well, and the category, since we chose report a bug from the SDK side. Here is an initial screenshot that was automatically taken upon reporting this bug, and the extra attachments as well. You can zoom in, zoom out in order like for clarity. Below that, you can see here some bug details that are automatically collected by the SDK, like the app version, the device, the OS, the current view, the session duration, the location, and many others. Of course, there are some custom user attributes that you can use to flag down some users and maybe filter the bugs with these attributes. So for example, let's say you want to fix the bugs for your VIP users now, or maybe give them a higher priority. So in the filter section, you can just go to the user attribute, choose a VIP user, and maybe say true. Once this filter is applied, you will only see these two bugs. So you might as well start working on these bugs first. Below that is a very important feature. It's called the repair steps. This feature is a visual representation of all the steps the user have gone through before reporting this bug in the last 60 seconds. So when you press on this one here, you will be able to see all the screenshots. I'm sorry, I backed a lot. All right, again, here's the repair steps feature. So here are all the screenshots that the user have gone through before reporting this bug. And now when you click on each of these screenshots, you will actually be able to see the user steps that he have already taken in order to report this bug, and the status of the application as well, whether it was on the foreground or background, and the activity of the application as well. This will help you a lot in reproducing the bug on your side. All right. Below that, there is a feature that is called a session profiler. This session profiler, it gives you details about the device itself rather than the application. So here is the CPU load of the device upon reporting the bug, the memory load, the storage, the connectivity, the battery, and the orientation. Of course, this will help you a lot if you have a similar device and you want to reproduce this issue on the device on your side. Now, below that, at the very bottom, is our logs section. This logs section, it has Instabug's SDK, it collects all kinds of logs. So for example, we collect console logs, Instabug logs, user steps, network logs, and user events. So from the very bottom to the very top, it tells you a story of what exactly happened on the application, like from both the app perspective and the user perspective as well. So you can see the user steps, what happened to the app. So the scene will connect, and then the app became foreground, and so on. This will help you out. Of course, in the case of the network logs, you will need to add Instabug's network interceptor in order to have these logs to your dashboard. Now, on the right side of the screen, we have an action sections. This section here, it will help you a lot doing some actions on this bug in specific rather than the whole list of the bugs you have. So you can delete this bug, and once this bug is deleted from here, it's completely deleted from your dashboard and from our database as well. In the status, you can change the status and put it in like an in progress status or a closed status as well. You can change the assignee. You can, of course, change the priority. And you can forward it to your favorite third-party tool, as Ali was explaining previously. So we can forward this bug to Slack. And we can view it on Slack here, as you can see. Here's the bug we just sent to Slack with the description and the attachments we just discussed. Now, Now below that, we have a view conversation button. This button, it will help you a lot reply to your user, and it will open some sort of chat between you and your end user. Initially, the message here is it contains the description and the two attachments of this user. So you can, for example, reply to this user in specific and tell them, thank you for reporting this. Now, once you hit send, and on the next session of the user launching the app, like this, it takes like a minute to be sent. There you go. You can see the message sent from you to from the dashboard to the user, and you say, for example, waiting for your reply, and send it, and you automatically will see it as well on the dashboard like this. Of course, all actions here can be automated through our rules page. So you don't need to do these things manually. You can have some rules triggered, and once the condition is met, this action will happen automatically. Now that's it for the bugs page. We can move to the bugs insights. This bugs insights product, it tells you an overview of all the bugs you have received. So for example, here you have received like a total of 20 bugs, but most importantly, this will help you a lot see how your support team is doing. So at the very bottom, we said we had like a total of 20 bugs. You can see the team performance here, how many bugs or how many reports in general that we closed, how many reports you replied to, how many minutes it took your team to reply to that bug or improvement, and how many minutes it took to completely close this issue. That's pretty much it for the bugs. Now let's move to the crashes page. Now, in the crashes page here, I will explain every section of it separately. So from the very top of the crashes page, as you can see here, this is the application performance in the last 7 days. Here we have a total number of sessions of 3,434. 664 of those crashed. So that gives you, only in the last 7 days, you have an 80% crash-free session percentage. Of course, here are the affected users. These are the users who are affected by a fatal crash or an ANR. In other words, these are the users whose applications were completely terminated and they had to run it again or to relaunch it again. Of course, here are the number of total occurrences and the fatal crashes, or like the fatal sessions, the ANR sessions, and the non-fatal. Now, for the fatal sessions, these are the sessions that mainly terminate your application completely, and the user has to start it again in order to see what's going on in the app. And the ANR or the out-of-memory, the app not responsive, or the out-of-memory crashes, these are the crashes that occur because the memory is fully consumed, so that the OS had to terminate the app in order to free some space. And here are some non-fatal sessions in case you want to manually report an exception, or you have a try and catch logic in your application, and you just want to log some data. These are the ones who never terminate the application. Now, below this, we have here a list of all the crashes that came to your dashboard with the severity of the crash. This severity, it depends a lot on the number of occurrences. It depends on how many users are affected, and so on. The number of of the affected users, the minimum and the maximum version where this crash occurred, and the last occurrence here. Of course, you can filter your crashes as well by the type. Let's say, for example, you are now working only on the ANR crashes, and you don't want to work on anything else other than that at the moment. Now, let's pick a crash from those and explain it more. Here, you can see a graph of all the crashes or the occurrences that happen on this from this exception or from this crash cause in specific, you can see the number of occurrences and the number of affected users. So we have 13 occurrences and 13 affected users. So that means the user crashed his application once and that's it. So no more than a user crashed the app twice with the same exception. Of course, you can filter these occurrences. You can show if you have an experiment, you can also filter with this experiment here. Below that, there are some data or some details that automatically collected by the SDK, such as the app version, the device, the OS. This is very beneficial in order to know which app version got the highest number of occurrences. So maybe you need to take it off the store, or maybe you need to force your users to update to a higher version that is less crashy. Of course, same applies for devices. So in case there is a device that you want to, that is affecting your performance heavily, so you need maybe to reproduce this crash on that device in specific and have it fixed in order to maintain a high app performance. Of course, same for the OS, for the app status, whether it was in a foreground or background mode, the current view, and the experiments, and of course, the user attributes. Right below that is a very important section where it has the full stack trace of the crash. Here is where all the developers, like, this takes the highest attention of developers, because this will help them understand where the crash is coming from, where exactly, of course, after symbolicating the crash and understanding and make it readable and understand what's causing the crash, this will help them a lot. Of course, this stack trace is fully downloadable to a TXT file, so you can share it among your team. On the right side here, we have the action section. It's pretty similar to the one we just explained in the bugs page. Now, let's move to the occurrences page. This gives you a brief or an idea about each user separately without any aggregated sort of data. So for example, we have here 13 occurrences. You can, of course, skim through these different 13 occurrences. Each one of those may have a different device. Each one of those will have like completely different details. So that will help you fix the crash faster in a more efficient way. Below that is, of course, the repair steps. This is very important in understanding the crash cause. This is very important in fixing the crashes. However, the only difference between the repair steps here and the bug reporting is that the repair steps here, the screenshots are completely taken away to maintain end users' privacy. Instead, we put here the view name. This will be more helpful to you, and at the same time, it will secure our end users' data. All right. Below that is the session profiler and, of course, the logs section. Now, you can move to the releases page. And the releases page, you will be able to see each app version you have published and the adoption of this version. And that means the total number of sessions happened on this specific version. Of course, how many bug reports or improvements you have received, and the crash-free sessions you have, as explained earlier. Now, that was it for me. Thank you guys for attending, and I'll kick it back to Ali to walk you through our APM. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rami. I'll be showing you guys our application performance monitoring tool now. So as I mentioned, this is our APM product. It stands for Application Performance Monitoring. And this basically provides automatic insights into how well is your application performing. So I'm going to get started and kind of explain to you what you're seeing on the dashboard right here. So up at the top, this score right here is an aptic score. An aptic score is a score between 0 and 1, 0 being the worst, 1 being the best. And it gives you an idea about your application's overall health or your application's overall quality based on the different metrics that we capture. So for all the sessions that happen on your application, we classify each session to fall into one of 4 main buckets. Either it's a crashing session, a session that ended in a crash, and you can view more information about that in the crash reporting product that Rami just has gone through. Or it's a frustrating session, tolerable session, or a satisfying session. We classify the sessions to fall into one of these 3 main categories based on the metrics that I'm going to walk you through in just a second. But just to kind of give you an idea, you can see that aptic score based on different periods of time, any period of time if you're choosing. You can even see how your application is performing on different app versions or all of them if you want to. And this graph right here will give you a quick overview into how your aptic score has been doing over the specific period of time that you've chosen. So you can kind of see if there are any sudden dips in the aptic score and investigate more about that. So without further ado, I'm going to walk you through each and every metric that we have and walk you through the details of it. So the first metric is the crashes. If I click over here on view all, I'll be able to go back to the crash reporting and view more about the crash and the details of it. Next up is our app launch. So we measure the app launch from the moment your users click on your app icon until the application is up and running. You have total controllability in terms of the target value or the threshold you want to set up for this specific metric. So for all the metrics that I'm going to walk through, you have control over the threshold you want to set up. So for example, you can set this one up to be 1 second. So if you want your application to be launching within just 1 second, you can do that, and you'll get a lot of information based on that target value that you have set up. So for each metric, we offer a mini aptic score for that specific metric. We give you the average time for this specific metric. So the average time for the code app launch over here is 1.279 seconds. We also offer you the 95th percentile, and this basically gives you information about how 95% of the users are facing such an experience or even less. We also offer you with the count and the dissatisfying count. And this could be very important for you to understand the number of occurrences or the number of experiences that were just not satisfying, to kind of give you an idea how many users face a slow app launch, for example. So if I click on this, I can view more details about that specific app launch. So as you see up at the top, you see the aptic score of that specific metric, the app launch over time. So you can see also if there was a sudden dip. You also see the throughput, which is basically the count, the number of times that your application has been launched. And you can also do some filtering right here to filter through the session. So for example, if you want to just find more information or more details about the launch latencies that were greater than 2 seconds, you can filter based on that specific or many other filters as well. If I scroll down a little bit more, I see some useful information as well. I see the average time for the app launch throughout the time period that I've chosen in the filter. I can also get to see the distribution to kind of get an idea about how long it takes most of my users to launch the application. As we can see from right here, we mostly have the majority of the user base right here is facing less than 3 seconds launch time, but we also have some anomalies around the 9 seconds and the 12 seconds. So we might want to dig deeper into that and get more information. Let's go down a little bit. We have the IS stages trend. So when the application is launching, there are different stages that launch as well. We're able to break down these stages, and we're able to give you the average time it takes for each stage to be fully launched and up and running. We even give you the ability to define an end app when the application has been fully launched. And you do that through our end app launch API. So this is basically an API, one line of code that you can set up anywhere in your application when you consider the application fully done. So for example, let's say you consider the application fully done when a certain process is finished loading, or when your logo pops up on the screen. You can place that API after that view appears or so on, and we'll be able to capture how long it took from the moment the application has been clicked on by your user till the code reached that definition of that API in your code, and we'll give you the average and 95th percentile for that as well. Moving on, if I scroll all the way to the bottom, we get to the dimensions part. So these are different patterns that we offer for different app versions, devices, operating systems, and first screen. Since not every time your users are going to launch the application, they're going to land on the same screen. Sometimes if you have like push notifications set up, it might take them to a different screen. We gather all these screens and give you an aptic score for each one of them. So as you can see, for each app version, you'll be able to see an aptic score for each one of them to understand more which app versions are performing poorly and have a better idea of the app versions that are performing the best. You also see the average for each app version, 95th percentile, the dissatisfying count, and the count. And you'll be able to see that across all the different patterns as well. So same thing for devices, you can spot any worst performers, same thing for the operating system and the first screen, as I mentioned earlier. So these are all the screens that the users landed on. So we'll be able to see if just a screen affects the time it takes for application to be launched. But not only that, we don't only offer all this information, we also help you prioritize the issues that you need to fix first. So we help you identify those bottlenecks by the outlier insights section right here. We'll be able to spot the things that are majorly affecting your aptic score, or the basically the user base that you need to enhance the experiences for, so you can make sure all your users are satisfied and you are fixing the issues that are of the highest priority. Next up, I'm going to move to the next metric that we have over here is our execution traces. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of what an execution trace is. An execution trace is basically a start and an end API. And this is for you to be able to measure the time it takes for any process in your application or in your code to be executed. So for example, let's say you have some calculations done in your application or some checking balance block of code in your application that checks the balance of the user, and you want to understand more about how long it takes for this process to be executed on your application. So what you can do is define a start API before the beginning of that block of code, and then an end API at the end of that block of code. And what this will allow Instabug to do is measure the time it takes for this block of code to be executed. For example, we have an exporting file over here. This is a process that, for example, is happening in an application. We've defined an execution trace for it, and then you will be able to set the target value for that. So for example, over here, we want to be able for this process to be done within 2 seconds. We set the target for 2 seconds, and you'll be able to see information based on that target value. The APM score over here is affected by the target value that you set up. Again, you see the average, 95th percentile, dissatisfying count, and count. And if I click on one of those execution traces, I can view more information, like, again, the APM score throughout time, the throughput, which is basically the count. If I scroll down a little bit more, I see the average time it took over the specific period of time I've seen, distribution as well. And down on the bottom, I see different same patterns as well. You've seen the average in the device and the operating system, see patterns for all these different things, but it's also worth mentioning that you can add your own trace attributes to any of the metrics that we captured. So for example, let's say in this exporting file process, you want to be able to understand how well is that process performing or how long it takes for this process to be done. If it's exporting 15 files versus if it's exporting 3 files versus if it's exporting just 1 file. You'll be able to add those trace attributes as key pair values. So for example, right here, the key is the number of files and the value is the actual number of files, how many files are being exported. And you'll be able to see the performance of that block of code, how long it took to be executed based on the target value that you set up and based on the number of files over here. This could be really helpful for you to understand how well your certain blocks of code is performing based on different values. And same thing for the paid version. Maybe if it's a paid version, or if it's not, you want to see how well this block of code is performing. You'll be able to do that as well. So moving on. Next up is our network calls. So we automatically capture all the network calls that are in your application. So we capture those network calls, and you'll be able to set a target for how long you want the network call to take in order to return a response. And you'll be able to view information based on that target value as well. So again, an APM score and the average and the 95th percentile. But what's really worth mentioning over here is that we have server-side monitoring and client-side monitoring as well. So for example, if you hover over the network failures over here, you'll be able to have a quick idea of how many client-side failures versus server-side failures this specific endpoint or this specific network call is facing. And you'll also be able to see how many occurrences or how many experiences were not satisfying based on that target value and the total number of times this specific network call has been made. So if I click on one of them, I'll be able to even view more information, similar things to what you've seen so far, the outputs over time, the throughput, the average, and the distribution. But then over here, you get a breakdown of the different status codes, the error codes that this specific network call has received. And you'll be able to see the different percentages for the 400s versus the 500s. So maybe if you're receiving a lot of 500s, that's more for your backend team to take care of. But if a lot of 400s, maybe your mobile team should be the one prioritizing enhancing that endpoint. Moving on, if I move all the way to the bottom, we can see more details about the patterns page right here. So we've gone through average and device and operating system before, but we offer more details in terms of network calls over here. We show you per app version how many client-side failures this specific app version is seeing, and versus how many server-side failures this app version seeing. The same with the dissatisfying count and the count. And you can see that similar data on different dimensions as well. So for example, we capture the country. So if your application is deployed across different countries, you'll be able to see the performance across those different countries and regions and be able to know which countries you need to enhance the experiences for. You'll also be able to see how well your application is performing on different radio. If maybe your application over here is performing better on Wi-Fi over the 3G, you might want to understand better why is that happening. They'll also give you an application score for the different carriers, so you can know which carriers perform best for your application. And one thing that's really important over here is we also give you response payload size and request payload size. And this could really be helpful when you're trying to understand more about what is the optimal response payload size or request payload size for this specific network call. And as you can see, you also see the client-side failures for this specific payload size and the server-side failures. So really a lot of information here to get a better idea into how your application is performing based on many on different variables. And again, if there are any outliers or any bottlenecks that are majorly affecting your application score, they'll show up right here. Next up is a UI hangs. So I'm going to quickly just try and give you an idea what UI hangs are. So Apple defines a UI hang to be any screen freeze or frame freeze that takes more than 250 milliseconds to respond. So in this case, that's why you don't see a target threshold that you can set up right here. We have it set up by default to 250 milliseconds, and we're able to capture each screen in your application and give it an aptic score based on the amount of time your users have spent hanging on that specific screen. Also, it doesn't have to be the entire screen. For example, if you have a profile screen and you want to divide that screen even further, maybe to understand how well is the profile header part, how many hangs is that profile header part is receiving versus how many hangs is the rest of the page receiving, and so on. We have also UI traces. So for example, it's a start and an end API as well for you to define, to divide your screen basically. And we'll be able to capture how many hangs are happening within that trace, within that start and end API, and give you information about it. So, for example, if this is the checkout page, this is the score of the checkout page, and this is the number of dissatisfying occurrences, and this is the total number of occurrences. If I click on it, I can view more data like we've seen with the previous metrics as well. So you see the aptic score over time. You see the throughput, which is again the count. The different thing about the distribution right here, this is the distribution in terms of percentage of hangs. So for example, we have about 279 occurrences where the user spent between 10 to 15% of the session time hanging on that specific checkout screen. So you can understand more about the screens that are freezing or hanging a lot, and you can try and enhance those experiences for your users. If we scroll all the way to the bottom, we get to see the dimensions and the patterns again. But the different part to mention right here is that we also capture if the power saving mode was enabled or not. Since if the power saving mode was enabled, the device is more likely to be a little bit laggy, and that might affect the performance of your application to a certain extent. So we give you the ability to view how well the application is performing when the power saving mode is enabled versus when it's disabled. And same thing for the battery level, where we show you how well your application is performing when the battery level is above 20% and when it's below 20%. So you can optimize your application performance based on that information. And again, any bottlenecks or any specific issues or any outliers are going to show up right here. One last metric that we also recently released, but is not showing up on this demo dashboard specifically, is screen loading time. And this basically covers the screen transition times and the time it takes for each screen to be loaded. And you'll be able to view it and see information like we've seen before. So that being said, really, application performance monitoring tool over here covers all the wait time that your users spend on your application and covers it end to end. So you can understand more about different metrics of your application and how well your application is performing based on the target values that you have set up. With that being said, I hope this demo was beneficial for you. And I'm going to kick the mic back to you, Julie. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ali and Rami, for the in-depth overview. We're going to answer a couple of questions from the audiences. So if you guys have any, please feel free to ping them in. But just to start, how do you export data from Instabug?
So to export data from Instabug, either crashes or bugs or maybe survey responses, all you need to do is just in the bugs page where we showed the list of the bugs and the crashes, there is a checkbox where you can tap this checkbox, mark them all, and then a drop-down list or an options button will show. And then you will find export to a CSV file. This CSV file will automatically be sent to your email address as soon as it's ready. So yeah, that's it. It's pretty simple.
Awesome. Next question. What kind of PII do you collect?
I can take that one. So just to make sure everyone understands this, PII stands for personal identifiable information. And this is actually a frequent question. And we actually don't capture any personal identifiable information except for the email. And this is an optional field. So unless you have set up for us to be capturing the email, we won't be capturing any personal identifiable information at all. So hope that helps.
Okay, next question. What's the impact of your SDK on the performance of the application?
It actually doesn't have any impact on the performance of the application. I think the only overhead the SDK might be adding to the application is less than 5 megabytes on Android and maybe less than 7 megabytes in the size of the application for iOS, but no really impact on the performance of the application itself.
Thank you, Ali. The last question that I'm seeing coming in right now, what does APM mean for mobile?
Sure thing. APM stands for Application Performance Monitoring. And as we've seen during the demo, it stands for capturing a lot of insights and performance metrics for you to understand how well your application is performing under for different operating systems, for different devices, and different sets of users, basically.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your questions. If you have additional questions that we have not touched on today, please feel free to reach out to our team and schedule a one-on-one demo. But thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thank you, Ali and Rami.